Welcome to the morning show. I am your host, Marli Ansel, at Marli Ansel on the Instagrams, and this is the morning show where you come to get your daily dose of inspiration and level up into your highest being. It is all about real life, but we make it so magical, and there is so much to talk about. So let's dive in. So today we're talking about divine realignment. Those times when it feels like the universe is blocking you and why. So this came to me last night. I had a memory pop up in my mind and I thought, oh my goodness, now that is a subject we need to talk about. So today we're going to talk about what and why the universe blocks you and how to kind of recognize if that's happening to you and what to do. But before we do, let's talk about those cosmos. So, as we know, we just had our new moon. We're now gearing up for two major events. One, the spring equinox is happening next Tuesday, March 19th. Now, over the week, you're going to see me become more and more educated on the spring equinox because I have been so interested in these points. The solstice and the equinox, these have been in place for thousands and thousands of years. There are entire structures built just for the alignment of the sun hitting the light on the structure at the spring equinox. So there's big energy around this, really big energy. But essentially, for our practical purposes, you can think of it is the astrological new year. So the sun is entering Aries. Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. So in terms of a new cycle beginning, this is it. This is it of 2024. And I'll tell you what, I've said it before and I'll say it again. The more that I study astrology, the more that I see there is no shortage of new beginnings. There's no shortage of opportunities to start again, begin again. It's almost like God knew we were going to be human and mess up a lot. You know what I mean? So we have the March 19th spring equinox is coming. New cycle, fresh new start. Think of it as your new year. What do you want to get in place? What have you been getting in place? And what do you really want to rev up? Because that's really the energy of it. And then we have the Libra full moon eclipse happening on March 25th. Now, I'm learning more about this right now. But one of the things that I've learned that's really stood out to me about it is Libra is about relationships, the balance of things. But that never really resonated with me. That doesn't mean it won't resonate with you. But thinking about it in terms of a relationship for me was like me. And maybe it's just because my relationship is gold and I'm like, well, I don't need to work on that. But one of the things that I heard was this could be your relationship within you. So think about balancing the polarity between soul and ego, balancing the polarity between your masculine energy and your feminine energy. So this Libra eclipse, depending on where it plays for you in your chart, could be something of that nature, bringing you more into that magnetic polarity of the feminine and the masculine. So if you've been a little too masculine, it could really kind of force you more into the more feminine energy to balance you out and vice versa. So we'll keep talking about it and we'll get it all worked out and figured out. I'm sure the closer we get to it, the more the energy will get clear. But today we're talking about divine alignment, realignment. What to do when the universe, it feels like the universe is blocking you. Why is the universe blocking you? What the hell? So last night I was in bed and I was thinking about, just popped in my head as these things do. It just popped in my head. And I remembered when we first moved into the house that we lived in Noda, which is like the arts district of Charlotte. This is when Robert and I first moved in together. First of all, I know a lot of you guys know the magical story of how we found this place, how I received the blueprint of the floor plan and I drew it and then I was walking it within a week. Well, the Noda place was a pretty magical find as well. And it kind of happened in the exact same way. We needed to find a place And Erica says, I love that shirt mainly because I was around when the concept was born. And I also want to know where I can buy one. I can get you a link to buy one. So this is I had these shirts made. This is my like signature shirt for the brand. Go big and surrender. This phrase came through, it's been, I think, 2 years now. Um, but I had shirts made for my Lightworker Society members. And it's just been kind of our motto, go big and surrender. Go big, why not? And then surrender it to the universal force of God to create it all for you. It's just a vibe, right? So when we moved into the house in Noda, just before that, we kind of were in a similar situation where we needed to move within like a week or two, and we hadn't found a place yet. It seemed less pressury than this place, but I was on Zillow. Wow, it's almost exactly the same. I didn't see the floor plan, but I was on Zillow and just going through the different places, looking where we could live. And I didn't even think twice about it really. I saw the place that we actually ended up moving into. And I thought, well, you know what? We need to look at places. Boom, send it. It ended up being perfect. It was below our budget. It was like, this is incredible. Okay, but that's not the story. When we moved into this house, the day before we were supposed to move, we go over there to sage it, sage and Palo Santo, bless the house, put our energy in it so it's fresh and beautiful for like when we move in. And we were having like a whole ceremony, Robert and I, just me and him. And it was just this really beautiful moment. Well, I also that day had a podcast interview scheduled where I was being interviewed. And I knew it was later in the day, but I thought that we had enough time to do it all. And I can't even remember who it was with at this point. But we were doing the thing, saging and Palo Santoing. You get it? Having a whole ceremony, Robert and I, to bless and give the good vibes in this house. And I remember in the midst of that thinking, oh shit, I've got this interview. I feel like I need to hurry up, right? But I was very aware that what we were doing was such a beautiful moment. And I was not going to rush this moment so that I could hurry up and get to that interview. Do you know what I mean? So we did the things, and I was trying to communicate with the people that were interviewing me that I was going to be a little bit late. And they were like, okay, it's fine, no big deal. And then when I go to try to get on the phone with them, the internet is not working. So then I'm trying to get, well, obviously we didn't have internet set up at the house, but if you guys know and you were with me in the Noda period, internet karma was a thing. The internet there was so glitchy. So I'm trying to like log on to Zoom or whatever it was where we were face to face and we were going to do this interview, and it's not working. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And then and my phone was dying. Internet wasn't working. My phone was dying. I go to my car because we don't even have electricity on in the house, So I go to my car to plug in my phone to try and do the interview there. It's glitching out still. It's all dark. The phone is like, because phones need a minute to charge before they will properly work. Anyway, it was a hot mess. And on top of that, I don't know if you guys have ever done Sage and Palo Santo in a ceremonious way, but when you're really immersed in that magic, it is not like a light switch transition into normal life. You need a minute. So I was all disoriented from trying to immediately transition out of this magical moment to do this podcast interview, as it was just a mess. Okay. Needless to say, it didn't happen. Okay. So I was thinking about that last night. Just popped in my head, so random. And I thought about how when things are not right for us, the universe, God, the divine, all of the magical forces will create deterrence to prevent it from happening. Now, why? I don't know. Why, I wasn't meant to do this podcast interview. I have no idea. But in truth, I don't know that I want to know. You know what I mean? There were so many things that happened blocking it, blocking it, blocking it, preventing it, preventing it, preventing it from happening, that it was one of those moments where you're like, this was not meant to be. I got to let that go. But I'm telling you the story because our minds, our egos can get really, really tunnel vision on like, but this is what I'm supposed to do. I could very, very easily have made up all of these stories about why that had to happen. Like, I need to be on this podcast or whatever. But the truth is that everything was preventing it from happening. And what I want you to really think about is when things don't flow easily, it is always because the divine is trying to protect you in some way, prevent you from something that could be potentially disastrous later, or it is trying to realign you to a better path. So when things like this happen, I now am in full surrender mode. You know what I mean? Like, it's not flowing, it's not happening, it's not meant to be. But the thing that I wrote down, I want to read it to you. Trust when things keep happening that prevent the thing. I know that sounds really simple. Trust that. When things keep preventing you from doing what you're trying to do, trust that. Now, this is twofold because you could be being prevented from doing a thing, or you could be blocking yourself. Meaning, like when we were looking for this house, the thing, like we couldn't find a place. We couldn't find a place. We couldn't. Oh, you know what though? Okay, let's go there. We couldn't find a place. We couldn't find a place that was perfect for us, that was everything that we needed. And as the story goes, it was a week before we had to move, and we still had not found a place. We were like, oh my God, what is happening? So Robert and I sat down to journal. And in the journaling, we found our crossroads. We found where we were actually contradicting each other. And then the place that we found. So Robert didn't want to rent, he wanted to buy. But at this point, it was like, there's no time. And then I didn't want to live in suburbia because I had this whole story about like, I live in the city. What do you mean? So I was blocking suburbia. He was blocking renting. We rent a house in suburbia. Okay. So that had to be cleared, right? But also when we saw this house, just I think the day before, the person who was supposed to move into it had pulled out. So there was divine alignment of timing. It wouldn't have even shown up before. Do you see what I'm saying? So all of it is to say is that everything is happening precisely how it is meant to happen. Like you got to do you. You've got to do your work to be in alignment with that flow, to not try to force things into place. But you've also got to trust that when things do not work out, it is always because there is something better waiting. Always, always. I know I've given this metaphor so many times, but I've given it because it is so accurate. Do you know the times when it's a beautiful day and you've got all the doors open, like doors and windows are open, you're like, this is amazing. And a lovely little bee or a wasp flies into your home and you're like, well, sir, you cannot live here. Okay. And so you open the door, the back door, or wherever it is, so that he has a way to fly out. Yet the bee keeps hitting up against the window over and over and over again because he can see the light, he can see the outside. He's like, this is the way. Why is it not working? This is the way. Why is it not working? I mean, while you're watching the bee and you're like, oh my God, guy, what a duck? I swear I just heard geese outside. But you're looking at this bee and you're like, my guy, like just back up a little bit, go 5 inches lower, and you're going to go right out the door. There was an easier route to exactly what you want. Always. If it's not working, there's an easier route, and it's probably going to be a better outcome than what you thought it was going to be. But we get real hung up on like, this is the way, this is the way, this is the way. And then we don't ever stop to take a minute to like see what is a better way. So I was thinking about it in terms of like, I spent a season making my life hard. Now, granted, there was a lot of healing to be done, but I spent a season making my life really hard. And it's funny because when you're in that season, you can't really see that you're making your life hard. You know what I mean? Like the bee is not understanding that he's making his life hard, hitting up against the window over and over and over again when there's a better way. So when you're in that season, there is probably some healing that you need to do. Probably because there's a reason that you think it's okay that your life be extremely hard. You see what I'm saying? There's something in you that's like, I deserve this in some way. Like, I have to suffer in order to be successful or whatever. And that's something you've got to really get aware of. So, in that, there's healing. But there is also this moment where you've got to get to a full surrender and say, and start to ask yourself, like, you got to get aware and start to ask yourself, hang on a second, why is this so hard? Do you know what I mean? Why is this so hard? Is there a better route for me? Is there something that's more in alignment for what I'm meant to do? Because, and this is where your core foundational principles will really help you. My core foundational principles is that what's for me cannot miss me. What I am meant to do is going to happen with ease and flow. There might be some challenges. I might need to grow. That's life, but it's not going to feel like a struggle. Do you know what I mean? If it feels like a struggle, you've gone off path. Like you got to come back home. You feel me on that? So we got to have a level of self awareness in it, which is why I come on and I talk to you guys about this because sometimes you're so in it, you can't see until somebody is like, hey, it's not supposed to be that hard. And you're like, oh, oh shit, it's me. It's a me thing. And so then if this is you and you're in this moment, one, I want you to start assessing why do you feel like it has to be hard? Because that's going to show you where you need to heal. If you've got some belief system that says like all good things come from what is the what is the phrase? Like what is that phrase? It's like all good things come from struggle and hardship or take hard work or you feel me though. You get what I'm saying. So you need to look at what do I have that says that? What do I have within me that I feel like maybe I'm trying to gain retribution for? Meaning like maybe I feel like I messed up in the past and now I'm trying to prove myself. Those are the kind of things you want to look at in your own personal healing because that can really get in the way and manifest a lot of struggle for you. And then two, you got to ask yourself if there was an easier way, then I want to back up and I want to see it. Because surely there's an easier way. You know, another one of my core foundational principles is that there is always a way. There's always a way to everything that you desire. It just may not look exactly how you think it's going to look. In fact, in my experience, it has rarely looked exactly how I think it's going to look, except for the few occasions where I get visions and then boom, it happens. I'm just thinking about how not few that is. That happens to me a lot. But when you're creating something, especially if you're building something that really matters to you, the vision that you see in your mind for what you want to create is a guiding point. And when you go after that guiding point, just like the bee can see the outside, you go after the guiding point. If it's hard and you keep hitting your head up against a wall, there's a different pathway to go to it. Do you see what I'm saying? So you got to back up. You got to back up and be able to see the whole picture and realize that there is always an easy way, always an easy way. And if the universe is blocking you like crazy, just let that thing go. Let it go, let it go, let it go. Because it's saving you from some sort of heartache that could happen later. I think about that a lot. I think about that a lot, actually, in terms of you might be facing something that feels hard right now, but in the facing of what it is that you're going through right now, it is actually saving you from something much harder later. Because if you can get it now, if you can level up in who you're being, if you can shift your frequency, then you're no longer an energetic match for that struggle. And if you can do that now at the level that you're at here, then it prevents it from being this bigger thing later in life. And so I think life is always working for us in that way. Do you know what I mean? I think life is always giving us what we can handle now so that we don't end up facing something that's extremely challenging later. So embrace your challenges is what I'm saying, and realize that everything does get to be easy. So if you're hitting up against something that's really hard, it's probably not the way. It's probably not the way. Amen. All right, my loves. Thank you for being here live. So Friday, we're going to have another Q&A. We're doing our Friday Q&A every week. If you want to send a question into the show, you can email me at assistant@marliansel.com. And or if we're friends on Instagram or Facebook, you can just send me a message over there too, and I will keep all of the things. And then on Friday, we'll do as many questions as we can. It usually ends up around 2 because I really like to explain things. But don't let that prevent you from sending your question, because your question just might become an entire topic for an episode. So if you have a subject that you want to dive into, you have a question that's just been kind of perplexing you, that you want to talk about the energy behind it, talk about how to move through it in a powerful way, whatever it is, remembering we talk about all real life things here: relationship, kids, parenting, job, business, money, all of the things. Send your question to assistant@marliansel.com, or if we're friends on Instagram, message me directly on Instagram. Okay. Thank you guys for being here live. If the show resonated with you today, please send it to someone that you think it would make an impact for. It helps us to grow the show and create a bigger impact. And if you haven't already, click like and subscribe and all of the things. Those of you who are on Instagram, we are also live on YouTube. So if you want to come over to the YouTube channel and binge out all the videos that are over there, that's a whole vibe. There's so many golden nuggets. All right. I love you guys. Have a beautiful rest of your day. Mwah, mwah, mwah. And I'll see you tomorrow for another episode of The Morning Show. Goodbye, my loves.